Hello, my name is Dr. Scott Young with Matt Moore, and we're in part 2 of NESARA and the Great Reset. Coming right up. Okay, so NESARA and the Great Reset, we've kind of given you a background. NESARA is a national point. Great Reset is a global viewpoint, but both of them are about money. And a lot of people want to be scared about this idea of money that's going to be digital. Already is digital.
Yep.
Money has already been digital. 10% of every transaction happens with cash.
Yep.
So calm down. I'm sorry, don't be rude here, but calm down. You know, I mean, the other day I had like one patient pay with $1,500 and the other person paid with $400 and $100 bills. It's very rare.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I get some people to pay $10, but I don't know. Do you have any cash in your wallet right now?
In my pocket I do, but that's primarily because I go to the Bitcoin ATM and put cash in it.
Exactly. And I mean, other than that, I mean, I half the time I don't even have any cash in my wallet.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't give me any, so I don't, you know, and it's different, okay?
Yeah.
The reality is we have to have a digital type of currency, and that does not mean it's the mark of the beast, okay? So we're going to focus on this one here a little bit more upon the Great Reset. So I'm going to throw out these little points here, and then Matt's going to kind of react to them.
Sure.
Okay? So we're going to, you know, kind of talk about this, and this is directly from the people in the Great Reset. This is from their own sites, okay? In the Great Reset, COVID is seen as the great mover or the mover to the reset based upon the greenness need for recovery. So, I mean, think about that for a second. So COVID is the mover to the reset based upon greenness need for the recovery. What would you say about that?
So obviously we know there's socialism undertones and that they also are really key on this Green New Deal stuff. And anytime you look at what the globalist agenda, whether it can be coming from the IMF, the World Economic Forum, the UN, it's all about, at the end of the day, if you look at their actions and what they want to achieve, it's a consolidation of power in order to run things more smoothly in the global economy, right? So even when they proposed the Green New Deal in Congress with AOC, right? And the whole bunch of socialists in Congress, right? Well, that, if you look at it, everybody was freaking out about it. And it was like, okay, they're laughing at it too, because they're like, you want to get rid of cow farts? You want to do what to all these buildings? You want to, you know, it's like, no, you don't understand. They don't care if it sounds ridiculous to you. To them, it's about control. Yeah. The more elements that government can control of your life, the more they have you by the balls.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly the point. Okay, so brands create more of an important role than governments, meaning that big companies, big tech companies and other ones, we just talked about 5 seconds before we went on here. Yep. Some was deleted off of the site. And will set the agenda and the profit. So brands are creating more of an important role than governments. Why in the world would that be important?
Well, it's again moving to a consolidation of power and influence. It's a level of technocracy and a crony capitalism or a corpocracy, and that's essentially it's what it's doing is it's consolidating the flow. And even the flow of cash, but also the marketplace. Right. I mean, it's just like with COVID-19. Everybody's allowed to shut down, but the big box stores. Yeah,
Walmart. You can't get COVID when you're at Walmart, but you can get COVID if you went to a small little restaurant, kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
And what does that do, Scott? That undermines the individual and their sovereignty and their ability to make a living the way they see fit.
Right. Which here's what that actually means: we're taking away competition. We wipe out competition, and that's been going on for a long time. Okay, we've seen levels of this. But we're going to come back and why that is going to be dead in a little bit. Okay, so it's about a global response. versus a national response. Why is the Great Reset about global response?
So the Great Reset is about global response because, again, the powers that be, once you, and this is what's hard for people to wrap their mind around.
Right.
When you have all the money in the world and all the influence of the world, right? Like, let's say you're real close to the money printers. Let's say you're real close to these government officials, and let's say you're in high places of influence. Okay, money, you can buy anything that you want.
Yeah.
Like, you're not trying to achieve that anymore.
Right.
What are you trying to achieve? Power over people.
Right.
It is like a drug.
It is.
And that's why our founding fathers are so big on decentralizing power,
Right.
And making sure that the individual has power over their life. Because if you can decentralize the system, decentralize the methods of power, the world tends to be a lot better, because we know the nature of man. You know the nature of man.
Right.
It's corrupt. It's sinful.
Yeah.
Okay. And once you consolidate power, you can see the worst of mankind, because there's no longer checks and balances.
Right. So if we have no more, if we don't have to worry about another nation being a competitor. I think that's a point that we have to look at. Another nation doesn't have to be a competitor. Another nation doesn't have to be, hurt us in that way.
Yep.
Then we can kind of go together and we can control all of the nations.
Yep.
Right. And we can control the trade. This is about trade. This is about, you as a nation need us and we need you in that way. And it sounds really kind of fun, like kumbaya.
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's a good point, Scott. What happens when you have all these giant corporations and all these governments working together, and you have a global government where they're consolidating more and more power? Like, essentially, you as an individual become a slave to the system.
Right.
If you think that you don't have influence now, wait. I mean, if this were to ever happen in the future, which we can talk about later, about there being a curveball that's going to disrupt the system.
Right.
But if the world elite have their way and they roll out this agenda, they consolidate more power, they get a global government that actually has real power. If you think you're not being heard now, and you think there's crony capitalism and corruption, and there's wealthy people that don't care about you, wait until they get their way.
Yeah, it'll be off the chart with that too. Okay, so now we have an Agenda 2030, and we could actually do a whole video on this, but I'm just gonna push through the Agenda 2030. First off, end poverty. Now, for people who are near poverty issues, oh, that's wonderful sounding. Okay, sustainable consumption. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna pause there for a second and say, what does sustainable consumption mean?
It's controlling the way that you consume, how you consume, when you consume, how much you consume. In fact, when they talk about eliminating poverty, really what they're talking about is lowering the bar for everybody, but except for the elite few that are on the top. So that way there is no quote-unquote poverty, because everybody's poor.
And that's exactly what happened in 1917 to 1922 in the Russian Empire that changed over to the Soviet Union. We were talking about this quite extensively, or we could actually, but the reality is communism brings most people down, maybe brings a couple people up, a little, but what's the difference of bringing, in today's situation, if you were making $12,000 a year to $24,000, well, that might be a big issue. But what if no one could make over $24,000? Just making up a number a year. Well, then there's no reason to work harder. Yeah. And that is a demotivator with that too. And they don't care about motivating you. Yeah. They just want you to have the basic needs met with that too. Yeah. All have the same progress towards prosperity, which is communism, peaceful inclusion, and included society. So that would be no religion. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about inclusive societies, what they're really saying is that you don't have any religious viewpoints anymore.
Conform to our way of thinking or die.
Yeah, right. Civil authority will be called stakeholder economy, meaning stakeholder capitalism. So I'm going to push this one out there and I'll let you kind of, respond to this. Stakeholder capitalism is corporate oriented to serve the interest of all the stakeholders, creating a long-term value and not to maximize profits.
Again, It's a level of corporate cronyism with a flavor of socialism.
Right. So now what it also does, instead of shareholder capitalism, people talk about this. AOC and Bernie Sanders loves talking about this basic concept. What they're saying is that these shareholder companies are about their own profits inside of it. I'm like, well, okay. And you would say, well, that's bad. Okay, I might go there with you. But stakeholder capitalism says now they're thinking about the good of everyone else. Oh, so now we have the good of everyone else by a company. When does that really work out well? Well, then they want to, then you have to ask this question. They think this considers that, takes away the shareholders into a global community. So when you have a global community, how is that good for people?
How is a global community good for people?
Yeah, how is that?
I mean, there's good globalism and there's bad globalism. Good globalism is just let the cookie crumble where it goes and let people be who they are. And there's this invisible hand, trading, buying, talking, communicating relationships together. It's all organic. It's much like nature. There's order in a lot of this chaos, but it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
What they're wanting to do is they're wanting to try to control every aspect, and it's really a slave, earth or globe of a permanent slave state.
Yeah. So and we've been there before, guys. If you don't know your history, if you there's a whole bunch of shows that talk about they'll go have a guy going around and who fought in World War II, and when was World War I, and they'll ask these little kind of basic questions. Who's the vice president of the United States, and little conversations, and people can't answer this because they don't even know their history. If you are a Y generation or X generation, you don't know your history.
Yeah.
You need to go backward and look at that. And you go, why do I have to care about history? Because history repeats itself if you haven't paid attention.
Yeah.
And we're on that edge of this. Okay. So my question, we'll end it on this part of this area. Who makes the rules? So if we have stakeholder capitalism, who gets to make the rules? So give me the people that are most likely in that way. You don't have to say the people's names necessarily because that's not relevant.
Sure.
But who are the basic people that get to make the rules?
Yeah, the head people in the corporations, the mega corporations, the states, the financial system. It's basically a giant oligarchy, really.
Right. And so how is that better for you?
Yeah.
It's not better for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, we're going to keep going here a little bit longer here because I think we can kind of push this over. If you really want to know a little bit more about NESARA, we're going to talk a little bit about it here. But there's a whole bunch of videos where we've kind of done this. So what NESARA is differently is what?
NESARA is, again, going back to the individual, going back to sovereignty, going back to restoring your rights, your purchasing power, and decentralizing power. And that's really at the core of it. That's what you want. Is you want to start fresh, but when you start fresh, you want to be able to be in control of your own decisions. You want to be able to have true purchasing power with your money. You want to be debt free. You don't want to be slaves. So NESARA is like almost the exact opposite of the Great Reset.
And I think what's funny is both of them will have a point of debt reset. Okay,
Yeah.
There will be a point of debt reset. And you might say, oh, that's so good. I'm just focused on the debt reset. I understand that viewpoint. But if you debt reset with globalism, you debt reset yourself. You basically just, pull away one, shackle point and then run over to this tie-up.
Yep.
And that's a scary thing when you realize it, when you kind of come to that point. But the cool part of NESARA is that when we pull people away from the debt economy that is inherent in the fiat monies, that is, by the way, the fiat money is definitely inside of Foundations of Liberty at Matt J. Moore. I was doing a Biden there. MattJMoore.com. And so when you have that understanding of that fiat money, the fiat money underneath it is all debt related.
Yeah.
Which and so when we move to a NESARA gold-based standard, what's going to happen to people after you first release them from debt? They're going to go, oh.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to change how they view this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How will they change that?
Well, I think a lot of education is going to be key. I think people need to understand, like when you talk about finances, when you talk about the economy or monetary systems,
people are
like blah, 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 you know, like they doze over it because the powers that be want to make it sound confusing because they don't want you to look into it. But if you know that one of the biggest keys to your personal liberty and freedom is your ability to be sovereign over your own money, then it's very important.
And what happens when you are sovereign? I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about Matt. I'm not talking about a government. But when you are sovereign over your money, what happens is you expand the kitty. We keep thinking that the kitty of resources and everything else is limited. I mean, that has been so endemic in our culture for a very, very long time. That is the lie.
Yeah.
That there is more capability in it than you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Because if let's say Matt and I both worked for a company, and we were both working for, let's say, the same company of 150 employees, and we are on the same par point, and now we're released from the company, not in a bad way, but in a good way, and we start our own companies, what happens is that he starts a company and he has 5 and then 10 employees. Scott starts a company, has 5 and 10 employees. Mm-hmm. Wait, that means we expanded the number of employees, which reduces the unemployment rate.
Yeah.
Yep. And then more people have the finances to go purchase the things they want to do, and it becomes this kind of stair step up, and it can be a very fast stair step, even though you might not exactly feel that quick rise. It's not a lottery winning.
Yeah.
It's not a lottery winning. So don't go there on lottery winnings. I mean, I had this conversation, a long conversation with someone, in NESARA. If you go back, look it up, and we're going to get $100,000 a month for 11.4 years. Had some of the original kind of conversations on there. How many times has a lottery been good for a person?
Very rare.
No, don't go there, please. Okay, it's not the answer, because that makes you kind of go, I'm just going to buy a whole bunch of things and then sit back, and ride on my boat or something like that. No, we need to be working. We need to be creating. This world doesn't need a whole bunch of sit back and mess around. And you might well call it, I've been working too hard for a long time. If you're working hard at things you want to do you like going in on Monday morning?
Yeah.
I do too. Because I know my own practice. Because I love what I do. And guess what? I want to go in on Monday morning. I'm excited for seeing what's going to come in the mail, what patients are going to come in the door. You're excited about going, you know what? I need to pick that project back up and push the ball forward, 10 yards more, kind of thing. That's one of the things that happens, and I think NESARA is actually going to be a part of that.
Sure. Too. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think here's the point that we basically said. Now, again, you can go through the NESARA thing a little bit more. What we were really wanting to do is hit what Agenda or Agenda 2030 or the Great Reset is doing. It's about more shackles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you'd have a quick reset of your money, but yet you'd be in another debt system that would knock you down farther. Okay. So if you were making on average, $40,000 a year, you would instantaneously be making less in Great Reset. Even though that you don't have as much debt, you would be making less and you wouldn't be farther ahead.
Yeah.
In NESARA, one of the things that will happen is there'll be no debt.
Yeah. But the purchasing power of
your money will actually go farther. I mean, you will instantaneously notice if you're making $50,000 a year, because there will be no income tax.
Yep.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
No income tax, and your money is worth more because it's gold based.
Yeah.
Because you just instantaneously got worth more.
Yeah.
You can buy more things.
Sure.
But you're going to have to be careful, because you can't go back into the debt point. So I think that's the powerful point. So how do you look at this stuff? What would be some of the things that you might do to research? Just talk a little bit about Foundations of Liberty and this and what happens in there. So why would they help? Why would that help them?
This book would help people because it helps you understand what it takes to really live free, to be sovereign, and understanding even the monetary system and how that even applies to your freedom. It references a lot of history and the Founding Fathers and the ideas that the Founding Fathers held, because I think we all need to be refreshed.
Creature of Jekyll Island talks a little bit about that, you know, which is a really powerful point of that, of how they set up the Federal Reserve. So the secondary thing, I think, is this same point in here, is we have NESARA and the Mark of the Beast. And NESARA and the Mark of the Beast, no, it's not the Mark of the Beast, but we're kind of differentiating between that. And this also gives you some of that same understanding. And by the way, we're probably using some of the same references in there too. When we look at that, because that helps people understand some of the basis of what you have to look at in the money with that too. So we went a little bit longer in this one, but I wanted to be able to wrap that up in a little bit more, you know, detail with that. But if you're interested in that, again, it's Matt J. Moore, not Michael J. Moore. That would be
MattJMoore.com.
MattJMoore.com and drscottyoung.com. If you like this information, ask some questions on the bottom. You know, he's gonna see it on his channel. You're gonna see it on my channel as we did it together. So thank you so much for listening to us.